right? That person call you that name like a Chinaman. We want to know because he has hate inside, okay? Although he didn't damage your property or hurt you or threat you or harass you, but he used that word, okay? You can come report to police. We want to have some conversation with that person. And we need to record that.
Okay, thank you. And
no problem.
How about in the, for example, in the office, in my company, sometimes if I heard something, and do I report to my supervisor or I just ask the police?
It depends on the situation. As I said, the charter rights and freedom is a constitution, right? Laws are made around those constitutions, right? We have provincial laws like Ontario Human Rights Code, also based on that constitution. Lots of the city, right, has that laws based on the constitution. Companies, big companies, they have their HR has anti-discrimination policies, stuff like that. If you feel like he's calling your name and you want to report your HR will deal with that for sure, okay? But if you feel like it's not enough and you want this person being recorded, you can come to police. We still can report, put a report on for you, okay?
Yeah. Okay. And also I have another, I have another question is, I'm sorry to occupy the time.
No, don't be.
Okay. And the second question will be the, for the hate, this kind of the whatever is the incident or crime, and versus the discrimination. Yeah. So how do you differentiate this different concept?
Discrimination is it actually comes from the bias, right? And last time I heard one presentation, a lady was growing up from Montreal. She was third generation of Chinese. So she went back to China, did 6 years education in Tsinghua University. She said in China, they discriminated her even worse than Canadian society. So their own people discriminating their own people even worse. That's what she said, right? So I mean, discrimination is a very subtle form, right? It's not to that level of hate, right? And it could happen to anybody. It's could be cautious, could be uncautious. Because the bias, you cannot remove it from people. We all have bias. Doesn't matter how good you are, right? And you just need to distinguish that and to know how serious it is, right? When it becomes serious, if you have good company, your HR should take care of that because they have the responsibility to taking care of you. If they don't do that, the company could be in trouble, okay? So you don't worry about it, okay? It's not your fault. You just need to report it. They need to deal with that, okay?
So, Roy, in your presentation, you briefly mentioned the discrimination about like open and settle. I'm just wondering, your experiences with like subtle discrimination in the workplace. How do you ever have experience with that, and then how you dealt with it? Because nowadays discrimination seemingly to be taken more seriously in the workplace. So people don't say, open way, saying like I'm discriminating you like because of your language, because of your background, because of your ethnicity. So I'm just wondering, how do you deal with like a subtle discrimination in the workplace or any environment?
That's a very good question, and it's also a very hard question. So how do you discriminate between overt and subtle? Well, the overt is simple. You know, they don't serve you, they ignore you, right? There's two people in the lineup and they don't serve you. They serve the other person. Okay.
Yeah.
Subtle is very, it's hard, and unless you're really tuned into it, you know, it's like you didn't get a promotion. Somebody who speaks with a very strong accent and they didn't get a promotion. Well, is that discrimination? Is that subtle discrimination? Or is that somebody saying, well, you know, we need to hire somebody who's easy to understand? If you, for example, if you don't write very well and you're full of grammatical errors, and you send a resume that reflects lots of grammatical errors versus somebody who isn't. Well, is that subtle discrimination, or is that meeting the needs of the company? Right? It goes back to how you present yourself. But subtle discrimination, it's hard to put a finger on it, but you just sense it, you just feel it. I think Tim or Mike, did you ever get that sense of subtle discrimination? The thing is with multicultural, it's depending on the person, it could be advantage. It happened at that branch. You know what? They thought having a Chinese Mandarin speaking customer service rep was a good fit. And being Chinese, being able to speak English, being able to speak Mandarin, and having a business background was a strong asset. So just because you're of a different race, different color, different background, it could be a real important asset. But the overwhelming importance is your literacy skills and your language skills, how you write and how you speak. Because if somebody has, again, as I say, for somebody who has a very heavy accent, it's hard to see beyond that accent. And that's why I keep telling the kids, language, language, education, education. And learn to write properly. Learn to speak properly. Those things open the door for you.
Yeah, it's good point you mentioned writing, because it's happened sometimes. Yeah, because of it had personally happened to me at work, because like writing is part of my job, it's my duty, and then because of my Chinese background, my writing was always edited, or I was always asked to modify my writing more than other people. But I checked other people's writing because we're published, right? So after our articles or writings are published, I check their writings. I don't think their writing is better than mine, but my writing always was asked by the editor, you have to change more, you have to modify more, and that was just, sometimes I feel ridiculous because other people's writing is way worse than mine, and nobody asked because they're native people, they're English or Caucasian, and nobody ever asked them to correct or modify their writing. So, but I'm just, they didn't say because you're Chinese, you have to correct your writings more, but I just feel like it's kind of behind. It's what they implying, but they just don't say it. But thank you for your experiences. It's very insightful. Thank you.
Roy, do you have any resources to recommend for people to learn English?
Yes, thank you, Yang.
That's a very,
yes.
Okay,
thank you.
So that's a very good question, because I have many people talking to me. Since I'm retired, I also do education consulting. And one of the biggest demand for me and my services, I don't do this, but how do they say, okay, I want to be successful in Canada. I'm a new immigrant. I want to be successful in Canada, but I talk with such a heavy accent or have a hard time writing. So how do I improve that? So one of the things, there's a couple of things I tell my students who are younger. When you're younger, it's easier to pick up the language and all its finer points. When I came over at 9 years old, I didn't speak a word of English. Now my English is my first language. You know if English is your first language when you dream and you dream in English. If you dream and your dream is Chinese, then that's your first language. So how do you improve your language skills? That's the ultimate question. How do you improve your language skills? You improve your language skills by the following. Number one, immersion. You don't talk Chinese. You don't read Chinese. You don't watch Chinese. You don't watch Chinese TV shows. You don't listen to Chinese radio. You don't watch Chinese movies. Okay, if you do English immersion, you talk English in your family, you read English, right? You create immersion in your own home. Now, I know the old school Chinese people used to say, 崇洋. That means that you're being fake to yourself. You're not being fake to yourself, okay? You're improving. You improve your language skills with your sons and daughters by speaking English, by reading with them. That's the only way, by constantly speaking. If you're speaking Chinese to your kids, then you're not improving, right? If you're at home by yourself, you can't improve your language. So you speak English to your kids. Don't forget, they can reply to you in Chinese, but you speak to them. They need to hear the English. The kids, they'll remember their Chinese, okay? But if you want to improve, you've got to be constantly speaking. Now, I'm sure there's classes on the internet that you can look. People can teach you how to do intonations, the colloquialisms. You know, I'm sure there's teachers that can teach you that are reputable. For example, I know a lot of teachers online. I'm a retired teacher, and they can teach you those things. But again, it's habit forming. You've got to be able to speak it to improve on it.
So Roy, thank you for your suggestion. I do have a little bit different opinion with you on like to speak English at home. I think it's important for the kids to learn Chinese for me. So I always talk to my kids in Chinese at home, ever, because they have lots of opportunities to learn English outside home. But
we're talking about not for the kids. In our family, for example, when I grew up, my father spoke Chinese to us, right? But remember back then when we were here, there was no ESL classes. There was no extra support. You are speaking English. And in English immersion, 6 months later, totally English, okay? I see ESL kids here that's been here for 5 years, and they still can't put a proper sentence together. All their friends are Chinese. The movies they watch after school are Chinese. The magazines that they read are in Chinese. All their friends are Chinese. They talk like they literally been here for a few weeks. They have taken ESL-A, ESL-A. They keep taking the same ESL. They couldn't pass the literacy test. Okay.
On that,
I do agree.
Right.
Yeah, you need to make friends outside of your own cultural circle.
For sure.
That's important for kids. Yeah.